All right, guys, today we're going to be working on a leaking camshaft cover on this 2.2 liter Ecotec. Let me take off this beauty shroud and I'll show you what we're talking about. So if we zoom in here, what we can see along the edges, that's right, we've got a lot of wetness all the way around this guy. This is probably the best shot, right around in here. But it's also leaking along the back. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove this top camshaft cover and put a new gasket on it. Pretty simple repair and put an end to that nasty leak. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to need to remove this air assembly here. We're going to use a 1/4 inch flathead screwdriver to loosen up this clamp here. Just need to get it enough where you can get it off of the throttle body. That should be enough on that. Then we're going to come over here and do the same thing with the one that's over here. All right. And then once those two are loose, we're going to take off this clamp here. And we're going to work this hose off. Now we should be able to remove this guy. Might have trouble with this little harness in the front. We'll pull that out after we get this off the rest of the way. You just want to go slow because everything's plastic and it's old and it could give way. These aren't as bad as the J cars were. The J cars were just notorious for this piece breaking off when you try to remove it. I'm not sure exactly how that one attaches. Looks like it might be a push pin. Yeah. All right, so we take that off. Now let's remove this whole piece. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to want to disconnect each of our injector modules here. Now there's a kind of like a safety kind of clip on here, these gray pieces. We're just going to depress that down. If we kind of see in the middle here, there's just a little button you can depress down. That lets you remove this piece, and with that piece off, then you can depress the connector and get it off. And they're old, let me tell you. They don't like to let go. All right, so we're just going to repeat that on each one of these. All right, guys, with each of these 4 injectors disconnected, now we're going to come over here and disconnect these 2 camshaft sensors. You just got to be gentle. One of them came right off. The other one's kind of old and not letting go. There he goes. All right. The important thing is just, this tab you see sticking out here on both the black and the light colored one, right? That fits into this guy right here. And so you just want to make sure that they don't get so old and brittle that that breaks off. We're just going to continue with the harness pieces here. So next is, there's a little retainer over here that we're going to kind of prise up out of the cover right there with a tool like this. Just trying to keep those clips intact. And then we've got a similar one here. And again, you got to go slow, guys, because this plastic is old and it's brittle. And you want to get it off without breaking anything. All right, the next thing we can do is, with that out of the way, we can remove that 10 millimeter holding that bracket in the back. Let me get this all off here. We can see we're going to have to replace our wire loom here. You can see it's just disintegrating in my hand. That's not uncommon. You know, the heat gets to it after a while. Just going to get some of it out of the way here, just so it doesn't end up inside when we're manipulating everything around. All right. What do we got over here now? We got another one of these brackets here. So let me switch over to the other side and we'll pull that one off. All right, we got no clearance for this little bolt here for the electric ratchet, so we're going to have to take him off with a hand tool here. Should be able just to loosen him up, spin him off by hand. This is yet another accessory that's attached to the camshaft cover that we need to remove. All right, so now we've got that off. We got the one in the back off. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to blow all of this debris out of this middle area so that we can remove these injectors, or ignition coils, I should say. Excuse me. All right, guys, before we blow this out, we're going to put a plug on this piece here so we don't get any debris inside, and most importantly, we're going to cover up our throttle body. All right, with all that blown out, now we can remove our ignition coil packs. Should hear a nice, satisfying pop as they come off the spark plugs. Make sure you keep them in order. It's not that they're not interchangeable. It's just that if you do have a problem, you don't want to have it migrate on you, and you want to keep it the way it was. All right, at this point, we're ready to remove these 10 millimeter bolts that are going around the perimeter of the camshaft cover. Now, whoops, we can see here that there's another one of these wiring harness type of Christmas tree clips. So we're going to gently work that out. Right, like that, just to get him out of the way. We'll pick up our dropped ratchet and continue. There's one that's way down here in this recessed area. shift to the other side. All right. I think that is it on this side. All right, guys, with all the bolts loosened, they'll stay captive to the cover. Now we're just going to find a good insertion point for a small pry bar so we can try to begin working this guy loose. Actually, it's not quite big enough to get my pry bar in there, so I'll start with our screwdriver instead. We just want to gently start trying to see if we can jiggle one side loose. Emphasis on gently. Once it feels like this side's starting to let go, then we can probably switch to our pry bar. Yep. All right, so this feels like this side is moving up and down. Now let's see if we can find a point on the driver's side where we can do the same thing. Again, I'll probably have to use the screwdriver to start, but there's a small crevice that's formed right here. All right, so we're just going to keep going all the way around wherever we can see an opportunity to pivot up on something to keep working this guy loose. Because even though it's leaking, it doesn't mean that the rest of the gasket hasn't gotten hard and sealed on here. So, all right, we're going to continue going around the perimeter, and we'll come back when we've got it loosened up. All right, guys, we've got it where it's all loosened up now by just patiently going around all the different corners. I'm going to remove this sensor harness right here just to see if I can get some more clearance. It's just like the ignition coil type of safety retainer. And we'll just put it back so we don't lose it. And what I'm thinking I want to do here is I'm thinking I want to lift this guy out and pull him this way. A bit of crud in here that I don't want to have end up inside that we forgot to blow. I didn't notice this. I'm thinking we can just pull it out like this. Biggest thing constraining our clearance is this harness. We got something else back here maybe. Oh no, it's this gasket. There he is. Gasket. The old gasket's got us hung up. There we go. Just trying to figure out what is holding on here. It's this old gasket. We're just going to go super slow because we still have some sand and stuff on top that could get dislodged as we pull stuff across it. All right, now we've got this guy off. Now part of the gasket material is going to be this centerpiece here. So we're going to go ahead and well, he's on there so bad that I can't even pull him. I get a small tool to remove this inner gasket. All right, guys, we're going to take a small pocket pry bar, find any part of this gasket that's weak, and then just work it off ever so gingerly using the tool. All right, so that one's off. That one's off. That one's off. Let's see if we can get this one on the side where the bolt was. Yep. All right, now we've got the old gasket off. Now we're going to clean the gasket surface. And you see, like right here, there's a lot of dirt here, and then it's right next to your timing chain. So you're going to be very careful. No more blowing. Just rags with brake clean. Kind of do everything from inside out. Get all this cleaned up so we can mount the new gasket. All right, guys, so I'm not going to bore you with the whole cleaning job, but for some of you that might not know what to do, right, so I'm just putting a little bit of brake clean on a shop rag. We'll come down here like this section here, and we'll twist it out away from the engine, right? And so all we're doing is we're cleaning up this whole surface. That's all there is to it. You don't need to get on here with a gasket scraper or anything like that. Just chemical cleaning is all you have to worry about doing for this. It's important to go outbound so none of that sand and dirt ends up inside the engine. All right, guys, so a couple of cans of brake clean. This is good enough. I know some of you might want to get this back to looking brand new, but it really doesn't matter. Within a matter of months, this kind of orange varnish is going to come back. What's important is to get it clean where it's going to be sealing up on the gaskets. The new gasket that we're going to be using is a 125-98014. Right, instead of being all stiff, right, this is supposed to be nice and supple. Make sure we get the right end in here. And just run it into all these different channels. And then the main gasket, same thing. We want to just identify the end with these square pieces. There's a notch at the corner end that has to get into the notch that's cast into the cover. And as you can see, the bolts are captive, right? So they're going to stay put. Now there's a guy like this. These are the ones that are going to sit here that hold the nuts for the coil packs. But they need to be pushed into this gasket to get it sealed properly. All right, so that one pushed through. This one hasn't quite pushed through yet. Now it's pushed through. All right, so that'll help with this particular edge on this side. That's to help prevent leaks at these corners. All right, so then you just want to go around, make sure everything is seated all the way down. Sometimes it can walk its way out in the process of installing the other side, but it looks good. All right, now we're just going to reverse what we did to get it installed. All right, guys, if we zoom in, I'll show you putting in these retainers here. So we're just going to come up underneath, and we're going to push them up through the gasket. And then one more. That's it. Now she's ready to go in. All right, guys, if we zoom in here, one of the things we neglected to do taking it off was we left this rear lift bracket for the engine on. It's going to make it a lot harder to get on without disturbing the new gasket. So we're going to go pull these two 13s that are holding this guy on. There's one here. And there's one right behind it. Just kind of control your movement so you don't hit this line here and break the plastic. Once you get it loosened up, you should be able to get these off by hand. So let me go ahead and pull this off, and then we'll continue. All right, guys, almost got this last bolt out. There we go. Be a good opportunity to clean some of this oil that was leaking out from our busted up gasket. Got all over this. All right, so with that out of the way, I think we'll have an easier job of getting this back on, this cover back on. So this is your last chance to do an inspection. So you want to kind of take a look down here, make sure you don't see any kind of debris, little pieces of paper towel, you never know, just get that fished out of there. But you're really looking for things that might be chunks of hard stuff, maybe a piece of broken wire loom, stone or something that you missed that was on top. The other thing you want to take an opportunity to do is check the belt tensioner. There's one here, and there's one way down there on the other side of this chain coming down the back. These are sometimes broken, so it's a good chance to eyeball if you have something more serious in here while you're in here doing this simple job. If that's not the case, then let's go ahead and get this guy remounted. Just kind of move our harness for our ignition up out of the way here. Last call on checking the gasket for proper seating. Flip her around, run her under the harness. And they're still going to go kind of slow, right, because we got dirt on the wire harness, I'm sure. Any other number of places where it could get knocked over and dropped inside that we want to try and avoid. All right, with that lift bracket out of the way, should go in a lot easier like you just saw. All right, so we're going to hand start all of the 10 millimeter mounting nuts. And once we're sure they're started by hand, because this is aluminum heads, guys, so you don't want to strip anything. Once you're sure that you've got them all started properly, then you can go get an electric ratchet and run them down. Just kind of use a crisscross pattern. And you don't want to go too tight because we're going to torque them in a moment. Got this deep guy over here. One back in the corner. Got a guy up here. And one back here. And last one right here. All right, next thing we can do is we can start some of our other brackets. All right, so we had this bracket here. And we had this bracket here. So we'll hand start this guy. And we'll hand start this guy. And then after we get these torqued down, we'll reinstall the coil packs. So let's go grab the service manual and see what the torque on these is. All right, taking a quick look at the 2009 A cars for the Cobalt and the G5. It applied to the G4 and the Pontiac Pursuit as well. Camshaft cover replacement installation procedure. Camshaft cover bolts are 89 inch-pounds or 10 newton meters. They do not specify any torque value on the ancillary brackets, like the ones that are holding the wiring harness. So they can probably go to the same. There's another section here in the back on camshaft cover removal. Some engines will have this ground strap. Ours did not. In ours, the bracket was attached to this casting. They mentioned removing the front and rear lift brackets. As you saw, you can get away with not removing either of them to pull it, but it is easier to reinstall it to remove the rear one. We did not remove the camshaft position actuator solenoids. I don't find that necessary. And that's it, right? So they just talk about replacing the gasket. All right, so let's go ahead and do our 89 inch-pounds. All right, guys, last one here, 89 inch-pounds. All right, at this point we can go around, start reconnecting things. So we'll move our safety clip out of here. And then we'll reinstall this where it was that holds the harness. And this one here. And this one here. All right. We can go ahead and take our cover off of the throttle body. Yeah, we lost our rubber band. We'll catch him later. All right. Now we need to put these two guys back in. Now we need to get some dielectric grease and reinstall these ignition coils. All right, so before we reinstall these, we're going to put some silicone dielectric grease, part 1234 5579. Now this type of product is not something for electrical conductivity, it's to keep water out. That's all it's for. Make sure you watch these bolts as you put this in here so they don't fall out on you. All right. We'll spin these guys down too. We'll look up the torque value on those in just a moment, but for now we'll go ahead and connect up the harnesses. Same thing we did over the other side. Just pop our security clips out, pop the harness back in, and replace the security clip. All these little clips do is keep this guy from accidentally coming disconnected while you're cruising down the highway. You didn't want to hear that nice click on all of these parts as you seat them in here. We did the 89 inch-pounds on this hinge, this bracket mounting bolt as well as this bracket mounting bolt. So let's go ahead and get our torque values on our ignition pack, and let's go ahead and remount our two 13 millimeters that are holding the rear engine lift loop. All right, guys, the torque on that rear lift bracket, those two 13 millimeters, is 18 foot-pounds or 25 newton meters. And the torque on the 10 millimeter that holds our ignition coil in is 10 Newton meters or 89 inch-pounds. Pretty common torque value around this whole project. Now something else torque-wise would be when we put the air cleaner outlet back on. We got the push clip over here, and then we've got the two band clamps that are held on either with a flathead screwdriver, but to torque them, you're going to want to use a torque wrench here with like an 8mm socket on it. Those clamps go to 44 inch-pounds or 5 Newton meters. So if we take a look at what we've got over here, we repaired our wire loom, as you can see, with the large piece here. We also repaired this broken piece here. And we've gone ahead, and what you want to do when you get all done with this, all along the perimeter here, right, just with brake clean, you want to go ahead and get all this cleaned out so that you can see if the repair held or if you still got leaks. Maybe something happened with the gasket binding up. If you take your time and go slow, that shouldn't be the case. Everything's ready to put the cover back on and wrap it up. So at this point, we're done. If you found this useful, or if you got some questions, or if you just got some comments about what we did, go ahead and leave them below and I'll try to help. If this saved you some time or money, hit that like button, guys. Really appreciate it. And as always, thanks for watching.